Shalom and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of a Shabbat teaching by Rabbi Rebecca Schatz.
I want to preface this all by saying I'm gonna dedicate our learning to somebody. I prepared this teaching on Thursday, and on Friday learned that someone who I was very close to as a child and who I've continued to know as an adult, but was much closer to as a child, passed away suddenly. Just didn't wake up. And he was a man who, when I think of who Yitro was, and I think with the help of the Prince of Egypt and the depiction of Yitro, they remind me of one another, and they are similar characters. Isaac Schmidt, who passed away on Friday, was a very joyful, his smile lit up an entire room, a very sweet, warm man, has 5 children, one of whom has children in this school, and was a guy that when you gave him a hug, you felt completely enveloped by all of his warmth and all of his joy. And he was also the person who was the head of the Chevra Kadisha at Sinai Temple. And when my uncle passed away, we went to shul. My uncle passed away on Tuesday, and the funeral was on, I think, Friday. And we went to shul on Shabbat. And the Chevra Kadisha isn't supposed to share if they've worked on someone who you know. It's supposed to be a very anonymous and very intimate thing that you just do for a person and without anyone's knowledge. And Isaac, knowing our family very well, came up to me and to my mom, and I think my grandmother, and mentioned to us that while performing Tahara on my uncle was glowing. And it's something that always stayed with me because it's not necessarily something that I should know, and nor is it something that I'm sure always that I'm happy to have known. But it's something that has always stuck with me as just a very powerful, intimate piece of Kedusha, of holiness that I should not have been afforded and Isaac gave to my family. So I wanted to dedicate this learning about Yitro, which again, I planned before knowing of Isaac's passing, in his memory and in his honor, and very much so in describing a person who I think was a lot like him. So we're going to talk about Yitro, and I'll pass these around in just a second. You know, Yitro, what happens in Parashat Yitro? What's the number one thing that you know of Parashat Yitro? Yeah, we received the 10 Commandments. So what's potentially interesting about a Parsha being named after Yitro if we receive the 10 Commandments? Yeah, Yitro was a foreign priest, and the 10 Commandments seem to us as Jews to be something that's very specific to us. However, what do we know about the 10 Commandments? Who do they include? What? Yeah, there shouldn't be a stretch of the imagination for us to think that when you say do not murder, that you don't mean anyone, right? We're not just talking about Jews. What we understand from the receival of the Torah, which we're not going to really talk about today, but in receiving the Torah, we understand that we received it in the way that we needed to receive it, meaning the people who had just come out of Egypt and were now about to call themselves, they were calling themselves Israelites, and now they're going to be Bnei Yisrael. They've kind of gone from tribal human beings to being this unit of a people. But what we hope from reading the 10 Commandments is that they really are about everyone. They're not just about us dealing with within our own bubble of community, but they are actually about dealing with humanity. So some might say, isn't it so interesting that Yitro, we can use the words that AJ used, this foreign priest, this priest from Midian, who is not part of our tribe, is named as the Parsha is named for him, not for the Ten Commandments, and yet the Ten Commandments are given within this Parsha that's named for him. I love that. I think there's something so powerful about that. And though we're not going to talk about that specifically, I wanted to point it out because we are going to talk about Yitro. We are going to talk about who this guy was and why it might be that he was such an unexpected leader, and why it might be that when naming the Parsha, we were not only okay, but we were honored to call the Parsha after him. Okay, I'm going to pass these around. Exodus chapter 18, verse 1. I'm going to read it because I'm the one with the microphone, but I want you to tell me, what do you notice here? Vayishma Yitro Kohen Midian Choten Moshe. So Yitro, who is this priest of Midian, literally a Kohen of Midian, and the father-in-law of Moshe. Et kol asher asa Elohim, he heard all that God had done leMoshe uleYisrael, for Moshe and for Israel. Ki yotzi Adonai et Yisrael miMitzrayim, because God brought out Israel from Egypt. So what do we know so far about Yitro? Yeah, Irv.
He was very impressed.
Okay, he was very impressed. Great. As one probably would be, right? Yeah, very impressed by what happened. What else do we know about him?
He has various statuses. He's both
Great.
a priest of Midian and Moses' father.
Yeah, fabulous. So we give him two titles, right? He has two qualifications. One, he's a priest of Midian, and also he is Moshe's father-in-law. Anything else people are noticing? Yeah, Alan.
He differentiates between Elohim and Adonai.
Oh, fascinating. Okay, great. So Alan's pointing out that whether it's Yitro or the author of this particular verse, it seems as though there is differentiation in between how God's name Elohim is being used and God's name Adonai is being used. Fascinating. I haven't thought about that before. Anything else? Great. Okay, so seemingly a person who is now connected to Moshe was very aware of and involved in what had happened to Moshe's people, not Yitro's people, but to Moshe's people before actually knowing Moshe, right? He probably learned about it from Moshe, but he's not only aware of the events, he's fascinated and really impressed by the events that have happened. Okay, we're going to skip 12 verses. There are lots of other things that happened. Rabbi Klickfeld read them for us earlier today, so maybe you read along in the English. We're going to now focus on the part of Yitro's, let's call it narrative, that I think most of you will actually have heard of before, and to me at least makes him the most impressive character in this particular story, and potentially the reason why within a parsha that has our Ten Commandments, he is given the kavod, he's given the honor of it being named after him. Okay. So the next day, again, we're skipping a few verses, but Moshe sat as this magistrate amongst the people, and the people stood on Moshe. Now, why did I translate it as on Moshe? What could that mean about A, the people, and B, Moshe?
The people were exhausting you with all the questions. It was
Yeah.
like they were walking on top of it.
Yeah, great. So kind of colloquially, if we say you're walking all over me, that seems to be what Moshe is feeling, right? They're standing on top of him. They're giving him some kind of pressure. They're clearly, it's not an entire nation standing on him physically, but somehow he's feeling suffocated. He's feeling as though he's overrun by the people. Irv.
You know, I read the team arrivals about Lincoln, and he literally would see hundreds of people a day. They were wearing...
Okay, I won't repeat that. But yes, they were wearing him out as a leader. Great, fabulous is another way of saying that. Okay. Min haboker ad ha'erev. So this wasn't just something that was happening while he was on his throne or in his court or sitting in his office hours. This was something that was happening from morning to night. Every single day he was being overrun, overwhelmed, probably exhausted by the people who he was, quote, ruling. Vayarchotem Moshe et kol asher hu oseh la'am, Vayomer maha davar asher ata oseh la'am, madua ata yoshev levadcha, v'chol ha'am nitzav alecha min haboker ad erev, excuse me. I'm going to just paraphrase this. What's happening here that Yitro is pointing out is that he's seeing that Moshe is doing a lot for the people. First of all, it's from morning to evening. And he goes to Moshe and he says, what are you doing? Why are you sitting alone? Why aren't you delegating? This is me extrapolating. Why aren't you finding other people who can help you? All of the people are standing on you. All the people are standing on you from morning to evening. Why are you doing this alone? Right? There were tons of people that just left with Moshe from Egypt. Why now are you sitting in an office all by yourself asking for no help? Are there any thoughts as to why this might be the case? Why Moshe might have done this? Okay, Irv. Very vocal today, Irv.
He was the first management consultant for anyone who's overwhelmed.
Okay. Oh, that's not Moshe. That's Yitro. Why is Moshe doing this? You're answering a different question.
Like I said before, had no management skills.
Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna craft this a little. So maybe Moshe needed some mentoring as to how to manage his team. You're so welcome. That's what I'm here for. Yeah, Alan?
Well, it's very interesting. Two things. First, that it makes it clear that he had to share the laws and teachings of God, and who else but Moses may have known that information at the very beginning.
Great. You read ahead.
No, I haven't.
Oh.
But the other point that concerns to me is that all the laws were known to him, and this is before the Ten Commandments, the Aseret HaDibrot, and the revelation in Sinai has taken place. And I can appreciate Ein Mukdam U'Mauchar BaTorah. There's no order necessarily what's going on in the Torah.
Okay.
But here there's aspiring, they're stating there's a huge knowledge about the laws that are known to Moses that no one else might know.
Great. I don't know how that answered my question, but you are right that what we are experiencing here is that there is a moment in which we believe that Moshe has knowledge of laws and understanding that somehow is helping him talk to people when they come to him with problems. And what Alan is pointing out is that what did he know if we haven't yet received it later on in the Parsha? But I want to go back to my question, even though I appreciate the other drashot that have been shared. Why does Moshe feel he can do this? Why can Moshe sit alone and do this? And why is his father-in-law pointing it out? What's happening here? Yeah, Irv.
Yeah, Irv.
Watch your mouth. It's like any other leader. There's leadership and there's management, okay?
Okay.
So he was the leader. They wanted to come to him. He was the liberator in their view, of God was, but, he was the embodiment of that.
Okay. So, I'm gonna answer my own question so that we can go on. That it's a great point. That is what was happening. The reason I think Moshe feels he can do this is because he just led the people out of an exodus. So he feels as though if I could do this alone, if I could lead the people out of Egypt alone, so too I can sit in my office and have people come to me and I'll know how to help them. He's had this sense of, if I can do something that big, this won't be so hard. For any of us who have ever done something alone, it is always going to be harder than if you do it with other people. Now, that's not to say that if you do it with other people, that delegating is sometimes difficult because they might not do it the way that you want them to, or group work is sometimes harder than doing something alone. But at the end of the day, if everyone is coming to just you, just in terms of time and effort, that is more work. Right? It just is, because it's only one person for a lot of other people. We're gonna move on to these next two pieces of this. It's all one. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No,
Moses may not be fully appreciating how much his immediate supporters, meaning his core support, his brother, his sister, his wife, and his father-in-law now, are helping him to facilitate, to make that possible for him to see all these people and still manage to get dinner and still manage to all this. There is a tendency for charismatic leaders who are not great administrators to rely very heavily on those who are immediately around them.
Okay, great. So Moshe replied, I'm just going to do this part in the English so we can go through it quickly. Moshe replied to Yitro, it's because the people come to me to inquire of God. So Yitro says, why are you doing this? Moshe says, because the people are coming to me. Obviously, that's why I'm doing it. If the people are coming to me, I must be the one who they want to speak to. When they have a dispute, it comes before me, and I decide between one party and the other, and I make known the laws and teachings of God. So he's saying, why is this something that I'm doing? It seems to be that people want me to be the one who's doing it. And also, I'm the one with the knowledge. I'm the one who's going to be able to help if they come to me with these questions. Okay, Moshe's father-in-law said to him, and this is highlighted because this is the piece that I think is the reflection of why Yitro was such an integral part to leadership and how we should actually hear the Ten Commandments then through Yitro's suggestions. The thing you are doing is not right, Moshe. You will surely wear yourself out and these people as well. Not only are you going to be burnt out, but the people are going to feel your burnout and decide not to come to you anymore, and that doesn't help anybody. For the task is too heavy for you. You cannot do it alone. Now, Moshe might not think that the task is too heavy for him, but Yitro is recognizing as a person who, by the way, has done similar work, right? That's why we got his credentials beforehand, so that we knew that he wasn't just coming to this and saying, hey, you're my son-in-law, I want to take care of you, but rather he's saying, I've done this kind of thing before. I know that you're going to feel burnt out because that's happened, whether it's happened to him or he just has had experience. Listen to me. I'm going to give you counsel. And God be with you. You represent the people before God. You bring the disputes before God and enjoin upon them the laws and the teachings and make known to them the way they are to go and the practices they are to follow. So yeah, you are going to be the one who people come to, and you're going to help them figure out what to do. You shall also seek out from among all the people capable individuals who fear, meaning revere God, trustworthy ones who spurn ill-gotten gain. Set these over them as chiefs of thousands, hundreds, fifties, blah, blah, blah. What are you going to do? You are going to find people who are just as passionate about this type of work, and you are going to use them as people to help you with this work. Not because you're not capable, but because you need to be able to do it for a really long time. And so you need to be able to have people who can help you sustain your own energy, your own capability by relying on other people who are just as capable and just as interested. Have them bring every major dispute to you, but let them decide every minor dispute themselves. So this, right, this is a form of, you're not trying to say you're giving up your power, you're giving up your leadership. You still are going to take all the major disputes, right? You're going to be the Mara D'Atra. You're going to be the one who, if there's something big, you get to decide. But there are going to be other people for whom, if there are little things to have to come up with, there are going to be committees and there are going to be staff people, and they're going to be able to deal with the little things. Make it easier for yourself by letting them share the burden with you. If you do this, and God so commands you, you will be able to bear up, and all these people too will go home unwearied. So Moses heeded his father-in-law and did just as he had said. Why is this important for us to hear before the Ten Commandments? I know I didn't bring you the Ten Commandments, but if you can just think back to even one or two, why is this an important lesson to know before the Ten Commandments?
These are the laws that everyone is going to follow. These are the laws that you're commanded.
Right.
And even in setting up this structure, it's I found it fascinating. He says, this is what I recommend you to do, and do it so long as God so commands you as well.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
Yeah, Irv?
Thank you, Alan. You just pointed out something new, because for me, this is one of the more fascinating things, because it's creating the structure for the people to have, where these are not minor things, but it's who stole this. Think of the disputes of the day. It's not like there was the midrashim. It was he took my this and I did this. So by putting the most capable people in there, it was a structure then to have a nation.
Great.
That's what it was. He made Moshe. That's why why he got the chapter.
Great. He definitely...
Moshe would not be Moshe without Jethro.
Great. So there is definitely a mentorship that is happening here for Moshe that allows Moshe to then receive the 10 Commandments and also be the person who teaches those 10 Commandments in such a way that, at least to me, after this piece of instruction and mentoring, he doesn't feel like, okay, now I'm going to have to watch every single person and make sure that they keep Shabbat, and I have to make sure that they honor their parents, right? It's on you people too, right? You need to, these commandments are not just for one person. Before it was Moshe, my guess would be that if anything was said to the people, it would be that I'll just use the word leader. It's not really what I mean, but that higher being would have been God. Now, when Moshe comes down with the 10 Commandments, all of a sudden there is a world in which people could think, okay, well, if I don't do these 10 Commandments, then Moshe is the one who I'm going to have to report to. I don't really mean report, but there's going to be some kind of watching over us, right? And I think what this allows Moshe to understand is that these 10 commandments that, of course, are not just 10, right? Within them comes lots and lots and lots of other things that we should do and should not do. But that we should be able to understand that it's not just about one guy, that it's about all of us. And even if there is someone at the top, it also means that we have responsibility and we have laws to follow as well, that we need to be responsible of, not just ourselves, but also with one another. In the last 3 minutes, I want us to look at one of these commentaries, and then we're going to actually end with Rabbi Dov Linzer's words. Okay, let's look at the Orach Chaim. I think that the Rashi is actually really wonderful, so read it another time. It describes why he has different names and the beautiful reasons why those different names are used. But let's look at the Orach Chaim because it's more on topic for what we're doing right now. Perhaps in this case, the Torah wanted us to know the greatness of Yitro, who converted to Judaism, although he occupied an exalted position in his country at the cost of his prominence and probably even his wealth. Now, just a reminder, it does not tell us in the verses that we read that Yitro actually converted to Judaism, but our rabbis want to believe that he had a reason to feel connected to our community, which is totally understandable. And so even if he was a Kohen Midian, right, if he was a priest from Midian, that there was some reason for him to still want to be connected to us, connected to the people that he was trying to mentor and feel responsibility with and for. Actually, the Torah describes Yitro in a contradictory role. Although he was a leader in his country and as such could have chosen prominent sons-in-law for his daughters, he chose an unknown to him, Moshe, as his son-in-law. Right? When he gives his daughter to someone, he gives his daughter to Moshe. He doesn't stay within his tribe. He says, that's a really great guy. I want that guy for my daughter, which is a pretty unknown thing to do, especially when you don't necessarily know the tribe. And in this case, he didn't even know Moshe. The Torah therefore describes him both as leader in Midian and as Moshe's father-in-law. At the time, the other aspirants for Tzipporah's hand in marriage resented Yitro's choosing an itinerant foreigner over them. Fun little love triangle here. Concerning Yitro's position as an ardent idol worshiper, something that is implied in his title priest, right? So what the Orach Chaim is implying here is that what we mean by priest is that he had a different way of worship. He had a different religion, a different way of finding spiritual connection. The Torah compliments him in verse 11 when he declared that he had found that the Lord was superior to any other kind of deity. So we mentioned this before, that he still did feel like he had some connection to our God and to our way of connection to the divine. The fact that a Gentile who occupied an exalted position in his own country and who was a religious dignitary to boot made a 180-degree turn becomes remarkable for the Jewish people only after the Torah tells us who this guy was prior to his conversion. So why I think this is an important thing to hone in on, and clear the Orach Chaim, and I truncated this. This was not the entirety of this commentary. The Orach Chaim is very, very interested in us knowing that we spend a lot of time on this guy who didn't, quote, belong in our people, right? He wasn't an Israelite. He didn't go through the Exodus, as far as we know, with us. Right? This was a person who chose to be part of our story, and not only be part, but help us craft it. Help craft our leader to be a great guy, not because he had responsibility for doing so, but because he cared for Moshe, and therefore he might have cared for our people as well. And I think that's a very powerful thing for us to remember. I care less that he wasn't Jewish. What I think is just impressive is that he didn't have a connection, whether it was through his religion or through his birth or through experience. He didn't need to have a connection to the people that he then tried so hard to help and to support and to love and to make sure that they were going to be successful. Rabbi Dov Linzer had a beautiful, it's a whole drash. This was just the intro to it was a podcast. So if you would like to listen to it, I can send it to you. But this was like the intro before the podcast so that people would listen to it. And it's a really beautiful way of talking about Yitro. And so we're going to end with his words. Okay, so Rabbi Dov Linzer, who was here just a few months ago talking with Abigail Pogrobin about their new book. Yitro was able to advise Moshe because as an outsider, he could see what Moshe, as someone operating from within a set structure, could not. Yitro's advice also constitutes two parts: how to focus on what's your unique contribution and how to embrace a broader understanding of Torah and mitzvot. How often do we make a point to seek out the advice and discernment of an outsider? And how much do we, in our own lives, follow Yitro's advice? So I hope as we go into this parsha, where we are discussing commandments, ways of being, utterances that we should live by to make sure that there is structure in our Jewish lives, I hope that you can think about the parsha that also comes from, and how we are as leaders and how we are as people in not only following those 10 commandments, but also using them out in the world, amongst lots of people where you are leading over them or from within, and how we are better because of it. And Yehi Zichro Baruch to Isaac Schmidt, and may his family be comforted in these next few weeks and months and years to come.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast site or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, go to tbala.org.